an NBA star, just declared himself eligible for the WNBA draft. His name is Enes Kanter Freedom, a former third overall pick, and he's not doing this as a joke. He read the WNBA's own rules on self-identification, found a loophole nobody wants to admit exists, and now he's using it to come after Brittney Griner directly. Sophie Cunningham said men shouldn't play in women's sports and got ripped apart for it by the WNBA old guard. Now, Kanter is using the same argument by the WNBA old guard to join the league in order to protect Sophie Cunningham, Caitlyn and the Indiana Fever from the likes of Griner. So let's get into how this actually works. Why is the WNBA in such a big mess, and do you stand with Sophie? Let me know down in the comments below.
After careful consideration and reviewing the current eligibility guidelines, I am officially declaring myself a WNBA prospect. If simply declaring who you are is all that's required, then I meet every single requirement necessary to compete in the WNBA. My team and I have carefully examined the WNBA's eligibility criteria and governing framework surrounding self-identification and inclusion. Based on the current guidelines, I can and am officially declaring my eligibility for the upcoming WNBA draft in May 2027.
Let's talk about the actual rule Kanter is pointing to, because this isn't him making stuff up. The WNBA's 2026 collective bargaining agreement says only players who are women are eligible to play in the WNBA. Sounds simple, right? Except the word woman never gets defined anywhere in the document. Not once. And that's strange because this same agreement takes the time to define dozens of other terms in detail. Words like biological, transgender, or gender identity don't show up anywhere in the paperwork either. So you've got a rule book that tells you who can't play, without ever spelling out what makes someone eligible in the first place.
Oh my gosh, it's happening. A former NBA star has now declared himself a prospect for the WNBA. This is Enes Kanter Freedom. He is 6'10", 250 pounds. He now says that he has reviewed all of the eligibility requirements and criteria for the WNBA and has decided to declare himself eligible for the 2027 WNBA draft.
This gap didn't happen by accident. The WNBA spent years building its brand around inclusion and self-identification, putting out statements about equity and welcoming everyone. That's a good look for a league trying to grow. But when you write your rules to be generous and open-ended, you can't act surprised when someone reads them literally and asks to be let in. That's exactly what Kanter did. National media outlets reached out to the WNBA and the WNBPA asking them to clarify what actually counts as a woman under this CBA. Neither organization responded. Not to the first ask, not to the follow-up.
So what this forces the WNBA to do is put their money where their mouth is and draft Enes Kanter Freedom to a WNBA team, or change their policy, or I guess be called out on their bigotry.
And here's the part that makes this impossible to laugh off. Kanter isn't the first case. Julie Tétart, a 34-year-old 6'3" trans woman, just won MVP in France's second-tier women's league, averaging 21 points and 20 rebounds a game. She swept Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, and Domestic Player of the Year in the same season. When Fox News asked her straight up if she'd join the WNBA if a team called her, she said, "I won't say no," and called playing in the WNBA a childhood dream. So this isn't some theory cooked up in a group chat. It already happened in Europe, on a real court, in a real league, against real women trying to make a living playing basketball.
Look at your screen. A French trans player says if the WNBA gives them a chance to play in the league, they would not turn down an offer.
Fans and media caught on to this fast, because the WNBA can't keep dodging the question anymore, especially with Brittney Griner running roughshod in the league. Reporters asked directly whether Tétart would be eligible under the CBA, and again, silence from both the league and the players' union. And that silence is starting to look a lot louder than any statement they could have put out. Kanter picked the loudest possible way to force this conversation into the open, but he's not the reason it exists. He's just the guy who refused to let it stay theoretical. And the timing of all this isn't random either, because weeks before Kanter ever mentioned the WNBA draft, Sophie Cunningham had already said the exact thing everybody in the league was too scared to say out loud.
I played with BG for 6 years, and so I know her like the back of my hand.
On that same vein, in that story with ESPN, you talked about wanting to protect young girls who shouldn't have to go against biological men. Just can you expand your viewpoint on that?
I mean, I think I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense. And I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. And so I stand on what I said, and I always believe that.
It all started with an ESPN profile published a few weeks ago. Sophie Cunningham could have dodged the question, given the safe answer, and moved on with her life. Instead, she said what a lot of players in that locker room were probably thinking but too scared to say. I got a lot of negative feedback about me hating trans, and I'm like, I never once said that. I think that I am here to extend love, but I also think with that love is truth, being honest. And I want to protect young girls in a locker room, or young girls in sport who shouldn't have to go against biological men. That's not a rant. That's a woman picking her words carefully and still getting torched for it.
When it comes just to protecting young girls in sport and women in sport, I feel very strongly about that. I think that's why you have Title IX. That's why you have some of the greats in women's sports. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport. And so I think in the future, it's just really important to protect.
She tied the whole thing back to Title IX, the law that built women's sports from the ground up. If Title IX and women's sports weren't protected, then you wouldn't hear about any type of women in sport, she said. And she made it clear this wasn't a political stunt for her. I'm not a very political person, but I do have beliefs, I have morals, and I'll always stand on those and be true to who I am. The next day, before a game, reporters pushed her on it again, and she didn't back off an inch. I said what I said. I think it's kind of common sense, and I think I'll always believe in that. I think it's really important to protect children, and that's little girls who are also involved in that category. She added, I've never once said I hated the trans community. I think there's space for everyone.
I don't dislike anyone. I think there is room for absolutely everyone here, and I think there's room to love everyone. And I truly think when you get people in the same room and you have conversations, you actually have a lot in common with a lot of people. And so I'm there to love, but I'm also there to love biological women, and I think that there are rights that need to be protected. And like I said, I'm going to stand true to that. I'll never falter in my beliefs in that, but I have never once said I hated the trans community. Like I said, I think there's space for everyone.
Instead of her own league backing her up, the coaches came out swinging. Cheryl Reeve, head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, wore a Trans Kids Belong shirt to a game against the Fever and said, I come from a space of inclusion. And the narrative that I think that is problematic is to suggest that, number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports. Reeve went further, calling the locker room concerned, basically made up saying the idea of biological men being a threat there is not the case, and that suggesting trans women are predators is the real problem.
The narrative that I think that is problematic is to suggest that, number one, that transgender athletes are the biggest problem in women's sports. And I think this is what's bothersome, is that there's a faction of people in our country that are making this a massive issue. We have some issues.
Golden State's Natalie Nakase jumped in too, saying, for me, sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self, and tying it to her own experience getting doubted for her height and her ethnicity.
For me, sports is about belonging. It's about inclusivity. It's about allowing everyone to be their authentic self. I'm big on that just because I have been criticized for my height, for my ethnicity. I've been in those "you shouldn't belong here" many times. And for me, I don't want that space, especially Golden State, to ever feel like that. So I'm all about women, little girls deserving to play, and that includes trans women. So I'm all about inclusivity.
Then Gabby Williams made it clear the players weren't lined up behind Cunningham either. I would welcome a trans athlete on my team or against my team, anytime. I don't think it's a problem in the world. It's just another way to kind of attack trans people. Williams called it the next fight for athletes to take on, comparing it to Laisha Clarendon stepping up before her. So inside the league, Cunningham's getting boxed out by her own coaches and her own peers.
I think it's trans rights now is our new battle. That's what I think I was saying, that like the battles have changed.
Oh, yes.
You know, like our intentions have been the same, but now that the environment has changed, we see trans people's rights being, you know, stripped away from them. There's a lot of discourse around trans athletes and what they can compete in. I would welcome a trans athlete on my team or against my team anytime. I don't think it's a problem in the world. It's just another way to kind of attack trans people. You know, we've seen players like Laisha Clarendon, who stepped into that forefront and have been brave enough and courageous enough to kind of step up. So I guess that's the next battle that we have to fight as athletes.
Outside the league, it's a totally different story. Stephen A. Smith spent 14 minutes on air going after Reeve directly, calling her irresponsible and asking, "Do you not think that the females are being screwed over if they have to compete against an individual born as a male?" He said the whole fight isn't anti-trans, it's pro-girls, pro-females, pro-women, pro-ladies. And he questioned whether Reeve even cared about the league's sponsors.
This is not about being anti-anything. This is about being pro-girls, pro-females, pro-women, pro-ladies. That's what this is about. You can't be a male, born a male, transitioning to female, and think that you should have the right to compete with women. Not in basketball, not in football, not in boxing, not in the UFC. Hell, not even in tennis.
And then Clay Travis took it to a completely different level, offering the Las Vegas Aces $10 million to play a high school boys team, and floating his own idea for an inclusive WNBA team called the Nashville Balls, one built entirely around players like French star Julie Tétart.
I put in a franchise application, Dan. The Nashville Balls, my WNBA team, would be the greatest dynasty of all time. Most inclusive, too. We're only signing men who identify as women. Our slogan is one love, two balls, and we are going to absolutely just dominate the WNBA. You thought that back in the day, Wooden had a dynasty at UCLA, that Bill Russell and the Celtics were something to behold. You ain't seen nothing till you've seen what the Nashville Balls will do in the WNBA. We are just going to put trans center court, literally, and we are going to have the greatest dynasty in the history of sport.
So Cunningham says something backed by Title IX and common sense. And her own league treats her like the problem, while guys like Stephen A. Smith and Charles Barkley are out there defending her on national television. That gap, coaches against her at home, national voices for her everywhere else, is exactly what Kanter points to when he explains why he decided to act. And it all boils down to one player with a dirty secret the WNBA doesn't want you to know: Brittney Griner. Why do referees keep missing the same hit on the same player from the same person over and over again for 3 straight years? Because that's exactly what's happened to Caitlyn Clark, and Brittney Griner is at the center of every single one of these incidents. It started back in 2024. Griner poked Clark in the eye during a live game, clear as day on camera, and no whistle blew. The refs missed it in real time. No foul, no review, nothing.
Felt like she took some contact there from Griner, doesn't get the call. Working the baseline, knocked off the underside of the backboard, did a nice job to recover, and bounces inside, pretty fine to win.
This whistle is for a clock issue. Clark's still upset after that hit.
Oh, this is what Caitlyn Clark is upset about, the screen set by Griner. Yeah, in a little bit movement with that right.
Then Griner turned around and complained publicly that Clark's crowds were too big for her to concentrate on basketball. So the player who poked Clark in the eye is out here acting like Clark's popularity is the actual problem.
We have heard nothing from the WNBA, absolutely nothing.
Brittney Griner elbowing Caitlyn Clark in a crazy way and then calling her a trash white girl.
And Brittney Griner has not commented, which I find significant. I've watched that video countless times, and it sure looks like Brittney Griner says, white girl.
The WNBA should investigate Brittney Griner's seemingly uttering profanities about white girls.
Then 2025 rolls around and the Fever face off against the Atlanta Dream, Griner's old team at the time, and Griner delivers a full body check on Clark that shows up clear on multiple camera angles. Again, no foul gets called. And it doesn't stop on the court, because lip readers picked up Griner screaming profanities at Clark from the bench, words that sounded a whole lot like trash white girl. No fine, no suspension, not even a statement from the league. That's the moment fans started connecting dots instead of just shaking their heads at one bad night.
But Caitlyn Clark was getting grabbed the entire game and didn't get one free throw. Not one. She also got hit in the lip, had a little bloody lip going on before any of this even started, but she balled out. 25 points, 10 for 17 shooting, 5 3 balls. This is the best Caitlyn Clark we've ever seen.
By June 13th, 2026, Griner's now with the Connecticut Sun, and she hits Clark with a moving screen that's blatantly illegal on film from every angle available. Refs let it go again. Then on July 22nd, 2026, Clark gets bear-hugged off the ball, takes illegal screen after illegal screen, and doesn't attempt a single free throw the entire game. But officials find time to hit her with a technical foul for pointing at the scoreboard after making a shot. The league quietly reclassified that technical after the game ended, switching it from a personal delay of game to a team delay of game, basically admitting the call was wrong without saying it out loud. Clark said the official seemed like he wanted to insert himself into the game. Connecticut's whole defensive game plan became fouling Clark just below the line that draws a whistle, because they knew the refs wouldn't call it. That's not bad luck. That's a system letting it happen. And this 3-year pattern, ignoring Griner while flagging Clark for pointing at a scoreboard, is the exact inconsistency Kanter's calling out. His declaration was never really about a roster spot. It's about making the league explain why this kept happening.
I am definitely not here to mock, make fun of, or disrespect any community or personal choices. I am simply asking that the current rules be applied equally to everyone. The rules that represent the very values many WNBA players and coaches have publicly advocated for. My team and I are prepared to ensure these guidelines are applied equally, consistently, and without exception. And I look forward to the WNBA honoring its stated principles. See you at training camp.
Here's the funny part about all this. The exact language the WNBA built to protect trans athletes is now the same language Kanter's using to knock on the door. The WNBPA put out a statement standing behind justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion, calling those the values that unite the union and adding they will not be used as political pawns. They called out hate, abuse, and demonization of any person or group of people, including transgender people, and told fans to push their elected officials to strengthen Title IX. That statement was supposed to shut the door on this whole debate. Instead, it handed Kanter the exact words he needed to walk through it. Kanter didn't ignore that statement, he quoted it right back at them. In his declaration, he said he's simply asking that the current rules be applied equally to everyone. The rules that represent the very values many WNBA players and coaches have publicly advocated for. That's not a guy trying to dunk on anybody for laughs. That's him telling the league to either mean what it says or stop saying it. He's framing this as a challenge for the WNBA to honor its stated principles, full stop, using their own press release as the receipt.
Inevitably, people are going to say that Enes Kanter Freedom is making a mockery of women's sports, but that's not how I see this. The people who advocate for men and women's sports are making the mockery. Enes Kanter Freedom is making a mockery of the mockery. And I think that's the most effective way to highlight the hypocrisy and the insanity of the things that they're actually advocating for. Several coaches support it. Even several WNBA players support it. So, let's say you WNBA, this South Park episode has now become like the blueprint. I went off this ride.
Now, here's the bind the league put itself in. If Kanter's declaration stands and nobody stops him, the WNBA either has to enforce the CBA's line that only players who are women are eligible to play, or it has to let it slide and prove the rule means nothing. Enforcing it means admitting the inclusion language was never as open as it sounded, which makes every statement from the WNBPA look like PR spin. Ignoring it means Kanter, or anybody else, can declare for the draft next year too, and the league loses control of its own roster requirements. There's no version of this where the league walks away looking clean, because both options break a promise they already made in public. And that's exactly what makes Cunningham's argument stronger, not weaker. She said biological men shouldn't compete against women, got dragged by her own coaches for saying it, and now Kanter's out here proving her point using the league's own rulebook instead of his opinion. He didn't need to argue with Cheryl Reeve or Natalie Nakase directly. He just read the CBA, found the gap they left open, and walked through it, which means the case against Cunningham was never really about her at all. It was about whether the league could keep the loophole open without anyone noticing.
People will start debating. They won't be debating Michael Jordan and LeBron James anymore. They'll be debating that bad Julie Tatart from the WNBA, from the Nashville Balls versus Jordan. Move over, LeBron. We got a new GOAT debate.
Kanter's been clear this isn't just about making a point. It's about Clark, Cunningham, and the Fever specifically. He's named protecting them as the actual goal, which turns this from an abstract policy fight into something with real names attached. Real games, real players who've been dealing with Griner on the court for 3 seasons. That's what makes this land different than some think piece debate. It's tied to a team fans already care about. The old guard didn't see this coming. Reeve wore a shirt to a game standing against the idea that trans athletes are a problem in women's sports, and Nakase talked about belonging and authenticity, and Gabby Williams said she'd welcome a trans athlete on her team anytime, calling it the next battle we have to fight as athletes. None of them built that argument expecting an NBA player to test it in real time. And now fans online are calling Williams's comments beyond weird and pointing out exactly how contradictory the league's position looks. Sponsors haven't said a word publicly, and neither has the league office, which is its own kind of answer. Every hour that passes without a statement from the WNBA is an hour where fans get to fill in the blanks themselves, and right now, those blanks aren't flattering. Kanter didn't just start a debate on a podcast somewhere. He created a problem with legal weight and public pressure behind it, sitting right in the league's inbox waiting for a response they can't keep avoiding forever. The WNBA can't stay quiet forever. Kanter took a rulebook nobody wanted to test and forced the league to actually answer for it. No more dodging reporters, no more silence after Game 1. Cunningham said biological men shouldn't play against women, got dragged by her own coaches, and now the league's own paperwork is proving her right. Clark and the Fever didn't ask for this fight, but they're standing right in the middle of it. Heading into the 2026 playoffs, Clark chases MVP Boston, Mitchell, Cunningham, Hull, and the Fever chase a title. And the WNBA finally has to show its hand. Why is the WNBA in such a big mess? And do you stand with Sophie? Let me know down in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications as we're bringing you all the action and top stories. Click the video on the screen, and we'll see you in the next one.